Hello and welcome to Daily Records. I am Tommy Burton, and we're continuing with my look at some big albums of the 80s, and we're going forward with R.E.M's Green, released on November 7th, 1988. This was R.E.M's sixth album, and their first major label release on the Warner Brothers label. It was produced by R.E.M. and Scott Litt, producer who worked with him several times after this and before. And it was sort of an album that continued with the band's sort of political leanings, even in the lyrics and the packaging of the album. And there were a lot of experimentation on this album from R.E.M. They went from writing these sort of minor key type songs into sort of big rock songs, but there were new instruments, particularly the mandolin, which is a prominent instrument that's featured on this album. Now, after this album, the band went on a huge world tour for about a year, and there were 4 singles from this album. Some you probably know: Orange Crush, Stan, which was a big hit, as well as Pop Song 89 and Get Up. And so that was those were the well-known tracks from this album. Now, R.E.M. had been recording for IRS Records, had gained a lot of a big following on the college rock, alternative, underground kind of scene throughout the 80s, built a huge audience. But they felt like they weren't getting good overseas distribution. And so by 88, they told IRS that they were walking and leaving the label. And they basically shopped other labels. Now, there were other labels that wanted the band because they had built this huge following throughout the 80s. But they ended up going with Warner Brothers for several $1 million, but not quite as much as they were getting from some of the other labels. But Warner Brothers offered them total creative freedom, and so they went with Warner Brothers. Now, it's funny because a lot of diehard R.E.M. fans will tell you this is where the band sold out. Of course, that goes with any band that grows or builds an audience. They sell out. Now, after they had signed with Warner Brothers, they started recording the basic tracks at Ardent Studios in Memphis. All my Ardent fans out there, a little bit of a shout out. But they were really going for something kind of different. They were encouraged, particularly by lead singer Michael Stipe, not to write any more R.E.M. type songs. And the results are a little mixed. Even the band members feel a little bit baffled by it. But you know, for all the songs on here, it really does quite well. It's a good listening experience, and it definitely kind of sums up the whole R.E.M. sound with the rock sort of guitars, sort of a big kind of rock sound, but along with sort of the more folky elements like the mandolin and sort of the sort of sweeter songs. Kurt Cobain listed it in his top 50 albums of all times. Of course, this was considered one of the top albums of the 80s, and New Musical Express ranked it as one of the 500 greatest albums of all time. So it's endured quite well. But this was the album that put R.E.M. on the map commercially. They became one of the biggest bands in the world after this release and achieved a lot of mainstream success. Particularly with a lot of support from MTV. They had a lot of videos in rotation. So if you grew up in the late 80s and early 90s and had MTV, you probably were watching a lot of R.E.M. videos around this period because they were playing quite a bit of them and they were very popular. But Green, funny enough, I also just want to point that out. I always thought it was quite humorous that R.E.M. released an album called Green and it's clearly orange, the album. But anyway, just a fun sense of humor. But Green is today's daily record. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's TommyBurton75. I love interacting and hearing from you guys. But in the meantime, I'll see you all again tomorrow with another daily record.